So welcome everyone, we are live. Welcome in Antwerp and welcome to the webinar about how Yahoo is driving or pushing forward crowdsourced security. And I have a special guest with me, Sean Poris, Senior Director at Yahoo. Please, Sean, introduce yourself.
Sure, thank you so much. Thanks for having me. My name's Sean Poris, and I am the Senior Director of the team on the Paranoids called Cyber Resilience. And the Paranoids is the security function at Yahoo. We're responsible for protecting customer, consumer, and corporate data, and we use our place on the internet to protect the vulnerable and abused. So, we take our mission very seriously to protect across the internet and partner with our Yahoo business colleagues to make sure that our products and infrastructure are resilient and secure.
That's a mouthful, I would say. and how are you trying to achieve this? Because I assume that you are doing or trying several things. Like the Paranoids, of course, are known for their bug bounty, crowdsourced security method. Are there other things that are fitting in that strategy?
Absolutely. I mean, if you look at the hallmarks of a major security program, we have all of those key pieces in place, with bug bounty and crowdsourced security being a major element. And in fact, I think Will Chilcott talked a little bit about his community-driven security focus that he's working on, and that was a really interesting post and insight into the thought process we have there.
All right, and if we go back and look at the history of Yahoo. How did it all started? Like, tell us more. Like, when was the first time you encountered the word bug bounty, maybe, or had the idea?
Sure. So bug bounty was interesting even before I joined the company. When I was looking into bug bounty, it was flat out rejected at a previous company. It was just that's too risky. There's no way we're going to let people from the outside test on our products and infrastructure. Then fast forward to Yahoo's program spinning up in the 2013, 2014 era. So it's been about 8 years or so. It started out with typical bug bounty structure, vulnerability disclosure policy, and then following on with engaging researchers to exchange bugs for awards. And then across 2014 to around 2017, 2018, there were many mergers and acquisitions and name changes, but we had a pivot where we connected bug bounty into our product security function inside of the Paranoids. And then we focused on more community engagement, more rigor and run books, and a way to make it reliable for the researchers, and then also combining that with live hacking and more innovation to keep making it creative. And we obviously expanded scope when we had these mergers and acquisitions. And then over time, it's really now about continuing to innovate, coming out of the pandemic and returning to live hacking events in person, which is fantastic.
Oh, very cool. And would you say that the landscape has changed? Like Yahoo is not the same as, let's say, 20 years ago, but also the bug bounty community might have changed. Can you maybe make a comparison?
Yeah, absolutely. So back in the day, a researcher, in the early stages of Yahoo, a researcher might submit findings to a company, and there was no way to get to a clear security ad or vulnerability disclosure program. So they would send it to somebody, and they would find themselves on the receiving end of a cease and desist order from legal. Some folks might even find themselves in jail at the time. And so now you fast forward to today, where bug bounty really seems to be more of a commonplace approach to dealing with testing of runtime environments for companies, and the partnership between researchers and companies the pendulum has swung, and it's now a much more positive interaction.
And would you say it's bigger, the community?
Oh, of course, yeah, absolutely. I think more. There's so much available out there. In terms of enablement materials for how to do recon and how to do bug bounty that didn't used to exist. The communities really come together to share with each other to try to up-level skills and have better research happening across the board. And I see more people working in teams rather than independently. So I think, earlier on in the program, the notion of teams, to me, felt a little bit less prevalent. And now the researchers are really recognizing that, one person could be great at recon, but another person has a really creative way to kind of dig into a system. And then another one has a great way to say, pop that final vulnerability and document it. And so they can partner up together. And a lot of the platforms now offer, the opportunity to collaborate on reports so they can share the bounties. And in the end, we get better research.
Yeah, because systems gets more complex. So I assume also, more expertise is necessary. And of course, as a researcher, you can't learn everything. And then collaboration is key to find those very particular vulnerabilities.
Absolutely.
And were there specific lessons you learned during the time you were doing bug bounty initiatives? Because you guys have several bug bounty programs running. I read through your blog, and currently there is an elite bug bounty program. I assume it fits a certain strategy. Are there other lessons learned, or what was a specific lesson learned on the elite bug bounty program?
I don't know if we have enough time to talk about all the lessons learned. I think one of the big things is making sure that the four corners of the bug bounty program are clear, that the researchers know what are the rules of engagement. And so we've invested heavily in making sure our documentation and our policy is really as crisp and clear as we can get it, and we adapt so that we can make it more usable for the researcher, so the researcher knows where they can target their efforts, what's in scope, what's out of scope, what we consider areas where that's kind of a no-no. And so I think that's really clear, because it's that informal contract between the researcher and the company that guides their efforts and makes sure there's the maximum value for the company. So that's one element. The other element is repeatable processes, because what we strive for, and I think every program should strive for, is, researcher John Doe from Belgium gets his report processed and responded to in an identical, if not very, very similar way than Jane Roe from Nigeria, right? And so the experiences are the same. And so if you have repeatable processes, if they're documented, if you're following them, if you're checking on them periodically, you can make sure that experience is similar and that the program is fair, which I think helps the researchers realize that, hey, this is a partnership and that we're going to have a good experience together.
So you're really building on that relationship with the researchers and trying to shape it maybe a bit.
Absolutely.
Cool. And if you had to advise a company that wants to start with a bug bounty program, or is even struggling a bit with getting it on a roll, which advice would you give to them?
There are a couple of key foundational elements you have to have in place. The first is, when you spin up a bug bounty program for the first time, you are leveraging the crowdsourced community. And so you're bringing an amazing diversity and collaborative capability to your products that your products likely haven't seen before. So you're going to have a lot of influx of reports. Some are false positives, some are real, some are duplicates. You have to have the capacity and the ability to process those. So you need a vulnerability management capability and vulnerability disclosure policies, all the things in place so that when you get this influx, you can actually triage, analyze, respond, remediate, and get back to the researchers. So that's a really key element. It's just having those foundational vulnerability management practices. If you don't have those, you're just not ready for bug bounty. On the flip side, I have conversations with folks who haven't articulated the objective of bug bounty. They want to do bug bounty because they've read about bug bounty and feel like they should do bug bounty. So one of the early things you got to do is check in with legal and find out what the regulatory and compliance requirements are. You've got to look around the security team and say, as I pull in different people, are they ready to engage? Have I clearly articulated my objectives? What am I going to accomplish with bug bounty? Is it going to be, say, a private program focused on one specific product and leave everything else out of scope? Or am I trying to get coverage across my entire platform? Am I trying to get a specific kind of research happening on my products or infrastructure? And so how would I target for that? How do I define success? Is it based percentage of higher critical severity vulnerabilities out of total? How do you define that? So I think a fledgling program, thinking through that is really key. And the other thing is budget, because one of the hard areas I always had every year, and now thankfully I have people running the bug bounty program for me, and it's their problem to hand up to me, is what is the budget? How do I know how many reports I'm going to get and what the payouts are going to be? So how do I plan for that? And what happens if I get through 2/3 of the year and I've run out of budget? The program's still going. Pausing a program is kind of the kiss of death. So that balance, I think for researchers and for people running programs, really interesting to know the struggles we go through to kind of plan for a little bit of the unplannable.
And yeah, a lot of companies might also be hesitant because they are not sure about their security maturity. Any advice on that? Like, should they do any pen testing before maybe, or how would you approach it if you're maybe a smaller company? And am I secure?
Yeah,
I'm not sure.
So you'll save some money if you do pen testing, but that's typically a little bit more vanilla compared to the quality you're going to get from the researcher community. So I think you have to have a strong infrastructure security, product security, cloud security, vulnerability management, set of engineers and capabilities to ensure that you've got at least the low-hanging fruit and then some of the scaffolding in place to make sure that you know what your posture is and what those weaknesses are, what are those known issues, and are you ready? You might want to create a security roadmap that doesn't include short-term bug bounty, but rather includes shoring up your security maturity. And then once you hit a certain level, then you can layer in bug bounty on top of it. The other thing I mentioned, ripping off the Band-Aid is going public, meaning I open up my program and anybody who is on any platform can begin doing research, and that can be a pretty significant influx of reports. You can start with a very small program, a private program, invite a handful of people, cap it, so you can kind of take it out for a spin, get a sense for what might come in, and then sort of go back and figure out what's your next set of strategies to roll out a really more, robust bug bounty program that would complement your security program and not force you into a position where you're not mature enough and now you're dealing with bug bounty on top of trying to build up your maturity and deal with audits and all kinds of other things.
So based on what you said, like, you should not start like a bug bounty program right away. It requires some preparation, right? And I assume that some people might be afraid a bit because it's a lot of work. Like, what would you say to companies that are a bit hesitant to start a bug bounty just because of the work, or like, why should they do it, or like, why is it you feel necessary to again build that customer trust maybe and to increase that security maturity?
Yeah, when I look at a company that might be hesitant about starting a bug bounty program, I look at, there are really kind of two perspectives on that. The first is the security team itself, kind of looking inward and saying, are we ready to unleash all of these talented people to be testing on our products right now? Is there a better way earlier in the life cycle, left shifted, DevSecOps processes, other things that I can do now that will secure and harden my products and infrastructure before I go the bug bounty route, which is after I've put it out the door on the production floor. So the security team, I think, has, can follow different maturity models to figure out how to grow and think about where bug bounty would provide value. The flip side, the second kind of company is one where maybe the security team is mature and can handle it, but the business isn't sure what this means. And legal isn't sure what this means. And so you have to go on an education campaign and explain the value of, many hands making light work of testing the products and finding things that we couldn't find because, say, your product security team is 5 or 10 people, but you have 50,000 people on a platform, and a certain percentage of those might bring their talents to bear. They're going to be able to find unique things that your team wouldn't be able to find. That's going to reduce risk, both for your products and as well if you're doing open source for the internet as a whole, which is a great thing. So, one of them is more of an education campaign. Another one is getting to a maturity level where you're really ready for this. Because if you unleash a bug bounty program too early, it's a bad experience for the company, it's a bad experience for the security team, and it's actually a bad experience for the researchers. So, and you only get a handful of shots to do it right before the researchers say, I'm going to go to another program. I'm not going to waste my time with this company.
And like, if I had to put you on the spot and ask, like, you need to pitch bug bounty to the management level and explain the value of bug bounty, how would you pitch it in like a few sentences, like right on the spot? Is it the amount of knowledge you gather like in quite a short amount? Is it the different set of expertise? Because currently there is a lack of talent, especially in the IT sector. Might be a problem, and this is a great way to get those different insights. Or is it a cost-efficient method, maybe? Because, of course, a breach can cost an organization a lot of money. Where would you put the biggest value on?
You just gave me all the answers. This is great. This is great. Now, I mean, again, it depends who I'm pitching to. So I have seen situations where having a bug bounty program is a market differentiator. So I've talked to business leaders where, say, they know they're going to go up on certain deals against certain other companies who maybe don't have a bug bounty program. And so if you got a top bug bounty program or, a strong program you can speak to, maybe that can be a business enabler, right? If I'm talking to, one of the engineering leaders maybe who, an engineering leader might be reticent to adopt bug bounty because it's not reliable and predictable. So they'll be in the middle of their development sprints and boom, 4 bug bounty reports show up. Well, what do you do with your capacity, right? How do you respond to that? So, the conversation there is all around risk reduction for the organization. And, another element that I've added on to bug bounty, and it takes extra maturity, but is this notion that we had originally of what we call the bug bounty life cycle and later the product security life cycle. But it's you get telemetry from your bug bounty program. What kind of testing happened? What kind of weaknesses do you have? Can you feed that back into your left-shifted security approaches so that you can architect better, right? So we can take this information that we're getting from talented researchers and funnel it into our program and get better. And over time, you get more and more mature and more hardened. So from an engineering standpoint, we say, it could be disruptive at first, but we're going to make sure that we extract every last drop of value from these reports that we're getting from our researchers and really drive improvements to not just security, but our overall engineering approach.
All right, and we already touched on the subject of like the different roles that need to be involved when running a bug bounty. Can you elaborate a bit on that? Like, which roles do you need to take into account when running a bug bounty program?
Yeah, and there's roles, and then again, I could spend probably an hour talking about just the allocations and how you fill those roles. But the role, you need the overall program lead, someone who's going to be setting strategy for the program, identifying those objectives, likely communicating those, up and out around the organization, staffing, structuring it, et cetera. Then some kind of project manager who can help with things like logistics for live hacking events, things like coordinating communication campaigns. Then you've got where the rubber hits the road, and you got your bug bounty operations analysts, and these are people who are part of the vulnerability management machinery and are capable of ingesting the reports, triaging them, determining the risk and impact to the organization, the severity, tie it to payouts, validate the reports, drive remediation into the teams, provide information to the teams so they have enough to go on in order to engineer solutions. And then you have these lifecycle operations analysts who are crunching the numbers and analyzing the trends and figuring out how to improve your security program. Now that's just the bug bounty piece. And then you've got, usually there's some kind of the operational response, like I mentioned, vulnerability management. You might have a product security incident response team or just a product security team. You'd likely have your infrastructure security team for any of those items. And then you can also pull in some of these, reports. Once you explore them more, they might be, incident worthy. And so you have to bring in your, forensics and incident response engineers. We have a team called FIRE that does that work. You might need to bring in legal to get some guidance about what you just heard. You might need to bring in PR as part of the team as a whole, so that you can deal with social media and get positive press for your program, work with reporters, et cetera, disclosures, and then you have to partner across the engineering spectrum. So there's a lot of people to bring into the fold.
Yeah, indeed. And yeah, we gave already advice for companies that are willing to start a bug bounty or are struggling with their program. But what would you advise to companies that are currently running a bug bounty and maybe want to take the next step? Any insights? Because you are running already a bug bounty for more or less 8 years. I guess you've seen it all in some way, because since, again, it's relatively young. Any advice on more mature companies that are already running a bug bounty but are willing to take it a step further?
Yeah, there's a continuum across the maturity of the programs and what they can do. So if you're running a bug bounty program, but it's only in private, expand that scope out, add researchers, and then consider pivoting. What your plan is to pivot from private to public, because now you can say have a public program and get more researchers. If you have an existing public program, but it's limited in scope, keep looking at how you can expand the scope. That makes it more exciting. If you haven't participated in live hacking events, that's a great way to engage the community and drive specific attention to specific areas of scope that you choose. We also use live hacking events, by the way, to test out hypotheses. So, we wonder if we were to pay out this way, or if we were to rank a ticket this way, or speed this up, or target scope a different way, or target a certain vulnerability type, how would the researcher community respond? What would we see? And what kind of nudges move things in certain directions that inform the program? And then the last piece that I just mentioned dovetails into a broader innovation philosophy. And so, we are constantly thinking about how can we adapt the program and do more interesting things to be more interesting to researchers, to answer more interesting questions, and continue to derive more value out of each bug that we find.
And speaking about live events, we are here today in Antwerp because we are hosting an event together with Yahoo and the Paranoids. How does this live event here in Antwerp fits in your overall strategy? Like, what is the goal of this event and the intent?
Yeah, well, we're super excited about the event being in person, the first one we've done in person since Q1 of 2020. So it's been a while. So the big thing for me is, reconnecting with the community at large. One of the big things we wanted to do and why we're so excited to be here in Belgium is to connect with the European hacker community and, really engage, different researchers to get, again, better collaboration, more creative approaches, things we didn't think about. I love when our bug bounty analysts and our ProdSec folks and our infrastructure security folks are connecting together and they're looking at a report and they go, how did this person even think about this, right? Phenomenal. Like I want to extract as much as I can from that and think about how do we change the way we think and the way we test and what kind of automations can we put in place. So live hacking events really give us a concentrated set of that telemetry. But again, it comes down, and for the team, we love the community aspect, both coming together as the Paranoids, and we bring engineers from across Yahoo supporting the scope together. So we connect in a concentrated environment. And then with the hackers, the interactions are just phenomenal. The conversations we have, we get to see who they are, they get to see who we are. And I think as you build common understanding and relationships, you're able to leverage the crowdsourced, community so much better. So live hacking events are an amazing catalyst to drive that.
Yeah, you can really feel when you're talking about live events and the community itself that you take it very close to your heart. Like, do you have any fun anecdotes maybe about your adventures with those researchers, or a report that you received and you said like crazy and after such a hectic day maybe we went to a bar and we just enjoyed like cool pins. So
Yeah. So, I have a couple, and you can stop me if I go too far. But my very first live hacking event, I mean, the very first time I met hackers and put faces to names was back in 2018. And there was one hacker. We were out at the pre-event before the next day's live hacking in person, but there had been a recon and testing period. And I was just chatting with the hacker and his buddy, and then he looked at me and he said, "Oh," he said, "You're from Yahoo," and he said, "Oh man, tomorrow you're in big trouble." And that's my heart sank, and I went, "Oh my gosh, what did this guy find?" And sure enough, he had some great findings. But having that conversation and then being able to chat with him afterwards and smile and talk about the reports was great. Another one that happened at an event, and I think it was one that we had in LA, if I'm not mistaken. Actually, I think it was New York. It was New York, and the hacker had submitted a report, and we had triaged it, and it looked like it was, kind of a low severity vulnerability, and so popped into the low severity queue, and off it went. And the hacker kind of came back and was like, I don't think you're interpreting this properly. We're like, "Oh, I know you're excited," and he's like, "No," and he's like tapping his screen really hard. And so, we walked over, and it was kind of a no to go into the war room, but he was so excited he kind of plowed into the war room. And so he's pointing to his screen, and we looked at it and we went, "Oh." And then we had, a 10 or 15 minute conversation, and we realized that, and this happens, the severity, he was absolutely correct. And so we changed the severity, and he had a great bug, and, we took it from there. And so, being able to do that in person, he was visibly frustrated, and he went from visibly frustrated to okay. And these are the relationships, these are the things that happen, and a recommendation I'd make to everybody in bug bounty programs is to assume no ill intent. That nobody on either end is either trying to, say, reduce the severity to save money, or, if the hacker's frustrated, they're not doing it because they're trying to be difficult. They actually, we have to communicate and get better understanding. And again, that's where live hacking events really comes into play to build that rapport. And obviously it's with a smaller subset of researchers, but every bit helps.
And in some way, it's a very unique experience, I think. So
very much so.
Thank you, Sean, for answering all those questions. It was very interesting. I assume that the people at home have maybe some questions for you. I suggest that we have a short water break and come back for a live Q&A session. So see you in a bit.
Sounds good.
So, Sean, we're back from our water break. I suggest that we first cheers. Let's do the Dutch version. Skål.
Skål.
And the first question is already in, by the way. Somebody asked, how do you manage new acquisitions in the context of bug bounty? Do you review them before adding them to your scope?
There's two elements to the question. I'll take the former, which is acquisitions are incredibly exciting when it comes to bug bounty. Why? From what we just talked about, what's really exciting, like being able to expand your scope. And so with an acquisition, you have new scope and likely new integrations with the new company and interesting things to test. In terms of what do you do to prepare when you have an acquisition, this is beyond bug bounty. This involves your security team, your business team, your legal team, your finance team, all the folks who are looking at acquisitions to make sure the property is brought in the right way. And so all those processes have to happen first, and then bug bounty, which is salivating for new scope, will swoop in and pull that scope in when the time is right.
Okay, interesting. And I've already received another question. Maybe this is a bit spicy. Like, did Yahoo move all their scope to Intigriti? Because today we are here at the live hacking event in Belgium. What's up with that?
So I think this is a plant from Stan and Inti, right? No, what we do, every year we look at our calendar, our plans, and we attempt to get the right live hacking events in place, virtual over COVID, and then eventually in person. This particular year, we weren't able to do that sort of in the normal pattern, and we were able to, fortunately, partner up with Intigriti to be able to do this event. And so that's really the scope of it, at the moment. But we've been enjoying it. We've been working together really well, and we're really, excited about what the future might hold for the Bug Bounty program as a whole.
Cool to hear. Another one. There are a lot of questions, so it seems. So you mentioned already you did a lot of live hacking events. What is the key to have success with a live hacking event? Like, how to be successful with a live hacking event?
Live hacking events take a real tremendous amount of effort from everybody involved, from the researchers who have to stop their lives and come out and engage for multiple days, for any provider who has to bring all of their people to bear, and then for the company itself to bring in their bug bounty talent and all of the people around the bug bounty program. So the guidance that I would offer is you need to have enough runway to plan an event successfully. Generally, I think around, honestly, 6 months to plan it properly is probably a pretty good lead time. And then to make it a successful event, like anything you do in the corporate world and the world, you must know your audience. And so who are we trying to engage with? Hackers. So what would hackers enjoy? They enjoy the community and coming together themselves. If you overprogram it and don't give them the opportunity to connect, that's not great. They love the opportunity to get to see a little bit of the business and to see the people behind the screens. So making sure you do that. And it's a really creative bunch. And so bringing a creative aspect to the event from the social standpoint, from the scope, from the bonuses, from rewards, all the things that happen. I think that's what makes it really successful. Now, from a business standpoint, from the bug bounty program itself, for us, as I mentioned, we have hypotheses that we test and we have objectives. So I think coming into a live event and being able to articulate specifically what you want to get out of that event and what you want to test and how you're going to adapt your programming coming out, that's a fantastic outcome for a live event.
Thank you for the great advice. And maybe a direct question, but how much money do you spend on the community?
Wow, that's direct. You went to spicy and direct.
Yes.
I love it. So we've invested heavily in bug bounty and the value that it provides, and so we're over the course of our program north of 20 million. We average around $3 million a year. Give or take. Some years have been bigger, some years smaller, but we believe trading rewards for the amazing research and the investment the community provides is well worth it for the Paranoids and Yahoo.
That's a decent budget, I would say. So what's next? What's next on the horizon for the Paranoids, for Yahoo? Again, almost 8 years, or more or less 8 years. What's next after today?
Wow. So the team is constantly looking at, innovation as an element of the program. So what's coming up next is we're getting ready to plan for 2023. We're taking a look at what happened this year and what did we learn about the program. We pivoted. We have a new fantastic team that's driving the program, which is awesome. So we don't like to sit still. And so every event we try to innovate. Every quarter we're trying to do something to innovate. So we have elite program for some of our top hackers, and we include promotions in there. We're trying to think about all kinds of creative things. I mean, I don't exactly know which ones are going to stick yet, but we spend very thoughtful time talking about what kind of things we can do. I'll give you an example of one It hasn't come to life. I've been talking about it since Bug Bounty started. Will it come to life in 2023? I'm actually, feeling Will, who's leading our program, Will and Arjun, heat on the back of my neck because, maybe I should mention it. But it's, I've always thought about like, what would an internal bug bounty program look like? We have very talented developers and testers. Could we cultivate bug bounty hunters or bug hunters elsewhere in the org? It's a lot of complexity involved with that, a lot of questions, but that was something that we've talked about. I don't know if anybody has successfully done this in their org. It's always been an idea, but it's not prevalent right now, internal bug bounty programs. But interesting, right? These kinds of things. So how do we make this very three-dimensional program and continue to take bug bounty to new places, both within the paranoids, but also within the marketplace? And that's really the position that we try to take.
And how do you see the change in the bug bounty community for the coming years? Like, what will change, let's say, if we sit together again in 10 years, hopefully? What will be the situation with the bug bounty community? Do you think it's much bigger, much specialized? Like, do you see a trend, for example?
I think that starts to get into the conversation of quality versus quantity and how we make sure that the researchers that are out there, that it continues to evolve and we get more and more and more of that quality as we grow the quantity. There's a lot of enablement materials that are out there so researchers can, budding researchers can, learn from some of the best. Like we just had Jason Haddix on the Paranoids podcast, and he's sort of the godfather of bug bounty, and he has a ton of materials out there. There's Hack the Box and so much material. So you can learn the tenets and the fundamentals of bounty hunting or bug hunting through those materials now. How do we make sure that the creative and alternative mindset, the destructive mindset, and I mean destructive mindset in a good way, I mean people who think about how to break down products and ultimately find vulnerabilities, how do we keep cultivating that as we do this sort of 101 training that's available now, and you get to the 201 and you get to the 401, right? So how do we unlock that skill set? That's going to be the question, how we continue to build that quality and quantity dynamic. The other thing is that, I'm pretty sure there will be alternate business models around bug bounty in the future. So, what are we doing now? We're exchanging bugs for rewards. It's transactional. Are there going to be programmatic elements? Are there going to be ways to unlock different capabilities from the researchers? I don't know, but we're always looking out and trying to see, can we anticipate that, and can we pivot the program to be able to take advantage of, kind of laying the tracks so that when the train comes in, we're ready.
Interesting vision. And last question, from what do you get excited in bug bounty? Are you still excited when running a bug bounty program, and what excites you?
I'm going to answer this from two perspectives, because at this point, I no longer have, day-to-day operations of the bug bounty program, and I've got a phenomenal team that's running the program. So what actually, like literally this week, and it almost, I'm almost going to get teary-eyed, okay? But this week I saw the team pull together, and this is a brand new team doing their first live hacking event together. And they've just been absolutely tremendous. So what gets me really, really excited is when I see teams come together, gelling, executing in new ways, and seeing the legacy of what came before them in perpetuity. Like I can see that, a couple of generations of teams from now will leverage what this team is doing. That gets me really, really excited from the raw, bug bounty programmatic standpoint. So from the paranoids and my team, that gets me, a little bit choked up. In terms of, what excites me is watching the researchers live and them getting excited about the scope. And one of my favorite there's a meme actually where in a past event, one of the researchers identified a really cool vulnerability. It was the moment where he found it, and he kind of looked over at his buddy, boom, popped the screen down, was like, done, we did this, right? That moment where a researcher finds that just exciting vulnerability. I'm so excited about that. I want to hear, what was the thought process? What got you there? What did you find? Let's talk. That is what's just so exciting, is that dynamic nature of bug bounty. And when that report comes in, and like I said, when one of the folks on the team says, "Oh my gosh, you got to see this," right? And it's just, and they say, "How did they think about this?" That creative research that I know is this treasure trove of ideas and future implementation in our own program is just really exciting. So I love that.
I hope we can capture such moment here in Antwerp.
Me as well.
Sean, I want to thank you for your time and for all the advice you gave. And I also want to thank the people at home watching our live stream. Thank you very much for watching, and hopefully we see you another time. See you soon.
Thanks for your time.
Bye.